Welcome back, folks. Sheepdog Smoky here as always, and I'm re-recording this because my intention of a darker theme, a darker setting, a darker video, physically just did not work the way I wanted to. For those of you who have watched for a while, I have talked about 1984, Brave New World, Animal Farm, Fahrenheit 451, a lot. These are cautionary tales, stories written, and they are fictional, at least they are still, or they are written to show why something failed in the past, such as Animal Farm with communism, where you see the leaders of the farm, the humans, leave, and then the animals take over, and ultimately only one group of animals is in charge and the rest are starving. And you see the mantra of all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. You see animals dying. All the pigs live in a house, wear the humans' clothes, sleep in the human beds, and get fatter and fatter. Well, up until very recently, only 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 have really gotten a shot on the screen. And really, 1984, it wasn't perfect, or it's not perfect, because it was made 36 years ago. It was actually produced in 1984. It was produced in England. John Hurt as the titular character, or not titular, but the main male lead. I don't remember the young lady who played the female lead. But it shows Orwell's vision very well, and it shows the society where hatred is stoked, but the enemy constantly changes, and the government's mindset is we can do what we want. Whether you're at war with Eurasia, or you're at war with this group, or with that group, or with this other group, it's always been that way. So when they change things, they go back and change historical record. They unperson people, and it is a brutal police state. Fahrenheit 451 was done as a movie, again, in Britain, in the 1960s, and for the time, was done rather well. Flash forward 50 years almost, and it doesn't hold up. And that's simply the technology of the time. But if you watched the newest version on HBO with Michael Shannon as Montag, or Michael B. Jordan as Montag, and Michael Shannon as the fire commander, it's done so much better because we have the ability to portray the society that Bradbury saw much more clearly and cleanly. And it shows the use of drugs, the use of technology, the use of state-run propagandist media to control the populace. If you buck the system, you are banished. You cannot buy or sell, and it shows that extremely well. That said, when it came out last year, I believe, I mentioned to several people that I really do wish that someone would make a film adaptation of Brave New World. So, light, Brave New World. Aldous Huxley wrote this in 1932. So it has now been 88 years since it was published. And it's only just now being brought to screen in a way that people will actually remember watching. There have been adaptations of it. There have been loose allusions to it in other shows, other movies, but Peacock has brought it to their streaming service, and you can watch the first 2 episodes free, and you have to subscribe to watch the rest. Now, they do offer a 7-day free trial. It is only $5 a month. It's not worth it to me. There's just too many streaming services out there, and I don't watch much of anything anyway. I've told you, I read. I'm working on my own series right now that I'm putting up on YouTube. So my free time is spent doing that, or I listen to music, or I play my Switch, which is behind the screen. But seeing Brave New World, I wanted to watch it. So I signed up for Premium, which is the $5 a month. I watched all 9 episodes. aside from the fact that the ending is where the story cuts off in Huxley's book, but not in the same way, there's allusions to a second season because they're calling it Season 1. They're not calling it a miniseries. If they do Season 2, it will be 100% written by the people who have butchered Huxley's work. Now, I'm going to warn you now, and I'm going to talk for about a minute about why. If you've not read the book, if you've not seen this series, or if you've done one but not the other, you may want to cut off now and come back. I am going to spoil the living crap out of both the book and the series. Now, the book I'm not so much worried about because if you're the kind who would read Aldous Huxley, you've already read it. If you've not, you're probably someone raised in modern education who would see it as horrific and to be banned. Or you're just apathetic about it. But the series, I really do encourage you to see it. If you don't want spoilers, stop now. And I'll put a timestamp in the video so you can come back and you can just click so you can get to the spoilerific part of the video. All of that said, I am going to spoil both. Now in the book, now granted, in the book we get a lot more visual than we do in the series on Peacock. And I actually do kind of agree with this in a way. First of all, we do see the engineering of people for New London. New London is the primary setting. It is a city set up due to some cataclysm, societal or climate or whatever. And it is an experiment, a sociological experiment. People are no longer born. They are basically hatched. They're test tube children. But they are engineered into castes. It is a caste system. You have alpha plus, alpha, beta plus, beta, delta, gamma, and epsilon. Now, I don't remember too many deltas or too many gammas in the miniseries. But your alpha plus, they are the, if we liken this to a business, your alpha plus would be your CEO and his board. Your alphas would be the people who directly work for the CEO and the board. So your extreme high-level managers who are not on the board of directors. So you have your alpha plus, CEO, board of directors, you have your management team, which is alpha. You have your supervisory team, which is beta plus, and you have your team leads under the supervisors, which are beta. Then as you move down with your delta, gamma, and epsilon, your deltas would be the ones who are the face of the company. They're your salespeople and your customer support. Your deltas would be the ones who are, say, your IT support, where they don't really get much recognition at all. They're kind of unseen. They're the ones keeping the betas able to do their job, keeping their cell phones running, their computers running, and their phones ringing. Okay, then you have your gammas, which would be, say, your cafeteria staff, your people who restock the vending machines, or maybe if it is a company like one I worked for in the late 90s where there is actually a cafeteria, they'd be the cooks. Then your epsilons are your grunts. They are the ones scrubbing the toilets and scrubbing the floors, emptying trash cans, and so on. Now in the book, there are physical changes as you move from one end of the spectrum to the other. Your alpha plus, your alphas are these strapping, virile people. They are very much the poster children for a good society. Your betas are attractive, and they are bred to basically be sex toys when they're not doing their little menial jobs. You get all the way down to the epsilons, and this is not racist in any way. I am not saying this is what society actually is, but they are malnourished, very short, very dark-skinned people who have almost no ability to talk. They are kept at the mental level of a toddler. Basically, they are automatons that can be given simple tasks. Empty that waste bin as soon as if it's full, empty. Trash on the ground, put it in the bin. that's all they're doing. Or they run the elevator where they can understand when they're told 12, they push 12. In the book, there's a scene where an Epsilon sees the sunrise and gets excited and tries to get people's attention, and they ignore it. Now, this is, of course, a change in the production of the series. In the series, your Alpha Plus down to Epsilon are simply actors. They are not all one race. They are not all one gender. And I have no problem with that because, quite honestly, it's not that big a deal. Huxley was writing in the 1930s from a standpoint of watching society react to different people. If you are a student of history, as I am, you'll know that in the early teens, the early 19 teens, was World War I. It was fought. You had the end of the war, you had the Treaty of Versailles, and then everyone went home. Really wasn't a lot of migration. The Americans went back to America, the British went back to Britain. Everyone went back to their home. World War II hadn't happened yet, so this is Aldous Huxley in a very insular United Kingdom, seeing the disdain people have for people who are unlike themselves, and seeing the differences in people raised in London versus people raised in, say, sub-Saharan Africa. Because very much the royal family would visit and tour their empire, and people would talk about what they saw while they were on that tour. So this is not as big a deal for me. Where I start getting upset is, one, Bernard Marx in this series, the male lead, and Lenina Crown, almost said Lenina Huxley, that is demolition man. Lenina Crown, the female lead in this movie, are very different from the book. Okay, Bernard Marx is an Alpha Plus, but there's an illusion almost the entire book that he should not have been an Alpha Plus, that the embryo that he hatched from should have been a lower caste, and it was a mistake that he was coded as an Alpha Plus. Lenina Crown is very simply a beta, or a beta plus. She does her job, she goes out, she takes drugs, she drinks, she parties, she has sex, she goes home, sleep, repeat. In the book, Bernard is brought to the high levels of control of New London. And they talk to him because Bernard does not participate in the orgies and in all of the parties. They see that he's different. And the upper levels, they talk about his conditioning. And this is something shown early in the book, where as soon as the children are able, basically once they're past the toddler stage, they're conditioned very exactly. There is shock therapy, there is negative reinforcement, there is everything. They are sexualized at a young age, and sexualized to believe you can have sex with anyone you want, regardless of gender or age or anything. I'm glad they did not show that in the movie. They are conditioned to believe their caste is what they want in life. The Epsilons are conditioned to believe that being an Epsilon is perfection, even though they are scorned by everyone above them. But Bernard, there's an allusion to he should not have been an Alpha Plus, maybe not even an Alpha, but he is, and he is to act his level. The person who's telling him this, now I've not read the book in a while, but I can tell you it is tough to get through due to the language, basically the English vernacular of the 30s that Huxley was writing in. But he is sent to visit a savage reservation. Now, think of this much as you would think of an Indian reservation, Native American reservation, very early in the era, just after they'd been created. Okay, they're very small, very insular. They don't branch out. There is no real industry. It is just the lifestyle of that tribe. And he sees them. And they're doing rain dances. And there are people who are Christian. and they're eating meat, and they are monogamous. They have children, families. But it is very simply Bernard, and Lenina goes with him, observing this way of life that has been deemed savage. And while there, they meet a woman, and in the series, her name is Linda, who has a son named John. I would believe it's the same. I don't exactly know where my copy is right now. That's actually Brave New World Revisited that I held up. But I am going to find my copy and reread just to see if they changed names for those that were in both. But in the book, they find out that Linda visited this reservation some 30 years ago with an Alpha Plus. And while they were there, they did what they did in London. They took their drugs, and they had sex, and all that. But when it came time to leave, they had been separated, and the Alpha Plus left her there. She was pregnant, and she had the baby. She raised the child, John. And the women of the reservation despise her because she'll let any man that wants to have sex with her. It's her conditioning to believe that sex is just sex. It's just a physical pleasure. They don't really talk about how she didn't get pregnant from all of that, but still. This shows that the engineering does not prevent pregnancy. And in the book, they talk about how when a woman is found to be pregnant, the pregnancy is ended. There is no choice. You will abort the child. They don't talk about that in the series. But in the series, there's a massive change. It's not just a reservation. It is Savage Land's amusement park, where they live in mobile homes. They have television, and they produce television commercials and programming. They put on theater for the New Londoners who come to visit, where they show monogamy as a vice. They show consumerism, capitalism as a vice. They show everything about the society that was as a horrific thing. Now, Bernard and Lenina are there, and there is a revolution between the two factions. Those that despise the fact that these New Londoners come and mock them, and those who put on the shows for them. In the book, that doesn't happen at all. In the series, these people who want to just be free and left alone convince John to put live rounds in the guns for the play, as opposed to blanks, and they start killing each other. The people putting on the play start freaking out. They're live rounds. Bernard doesn't even know that it's not supposed to happen at all. Bernard ends up shot in the shoulder. Lenina gets him away. Ultimately, they end up at John and Linda's house. Linda gets the bullet out of him, and the woman he wants to be with, who is with someone else, finds out that Bernard and Lenina are there, and Linda stabs her. They make it to another person's home who cauterizes Bernard's wound while Bernard's getting drunk on basically moonshine. This person ends up getting shot when the people who want to get the New Worlders out show up. And they race off in this man's truck. Linda is not a drug-addled, wants the next fix still person. She's very much just like freedom fighter. They get to the barrier. Now, in the book, of course, it is just a fence. It's guarded by people who are taking the drug and living a new way of life. In the series, it is an electromagnetic field. Like Fahrenheit 451 with Huxley and everything else. Don't mind this change. It shows that this is a far-off time in the human society. But that barrier allows anyone who is not a savage through. Amazingly, John and Linda can walk right through with Bernard and Lenina. They get back on the rocket, they're headed home. John sees that his mother has been shot, and she dies on a plane, which is not what happened in the book. In the book, they all make it back. Okay, there wasn't a revolution. They just leave, taking John and Linda with them. They make it back to New London. Linda immediately starts popping pills, Soma. I find it very odd that they use Soma as the drug of choice, and it's all just color-coded. You get some of green or some of yellow or whatever for different concentrations. I can tell you, I had a good friend of mine who had a lot of injuries, rodeo, firefighter, other things he did that were stupid, and there is a pain pill, a muscle relaxant called Soma. It puts you out of your mind and to sleep pretty hard. If you're not asleep, you are just out of it until you fall asleep. But Linda starts just popping pill after pill after pill after pill after pill and overdoses. And John doesn't understand it. He sees it as this new world killed my mother. In the series, it's his own people that killed his mother. So in the book, John doesn't want to integrate into a world that caused his mother's death. He refuses to integrate into the party lifestyle. He tries to have a relationship with Lenina, who is perfectly willing to sleep with him anytime he wants. But she's going to sleep with anybody else who wants her as well. And John doesn't want to sleep with her because she's still living that lifestyle. Ultimately, at the end of the book, John just leaves. He finds a way to set up a little house with a little garden to grow some food and just live. And then these people from New London find him and still come and gawk at him. He is a savage to them. In one scene, it actually shows self-flagellation, where he's using a whip on his own back. And they're laughing and pointing, and he ultimately attacks them to drive them off. But in the series, since it was his own people that shot and killed Linda, he starts to integrate. Now, I'm not going to talk about the tech aspect of it because that wasn't in the book. But that is there. But he starts taking the Soma. He starts going to the parties. He starts making up stories to tell the people at the party so that they can just crowd around him and soak it up, and he gets attention. He starts going to the orgies. He starts having all the sex he wants. But it's never enough, and he never is fulfilled by it. Ultimately, he does leave. Prior to seeing where that departure is to, the Epsilons, who he has been talking to, he doesn't see caste. He sees people. The Epsilons rise up and slaughter the Alphas and Betas. And Bernard, Lenina, and John are really the only ones that survive. And we don't really see where Lenina ends up. Bernard, with Wilhelmina Watson, who is she produces what they call feelies. Now, this is basically their version of a movie, except it is complete VR, just beamed into your head. And they always end up in an orgy. Bernard and Watson end up going back to Savage Lands for some reason. They show something to the leader of the people who tried to kill them all, and it alludes to that they're going to set up a new version of this entire society. Now, the one bit that I've not really talked about, and this is something I don't remember from the books, and this is very much because in 1932, Huxley could not have even, in his wildest, fevered imagination, envisioned how they show how this world is controlled. There is the world controller, Mustafa Mond. They never really talk about gender, age, or anything. It is just the world controller. No one knows Mustafa Mond. No one talks to Mustafa Mond. It's all run by the directors and the managers and the supervisors and the counselors. And in the book it works. In the series we have Mustafa Mond. And in this series, she has an avatar that appears to her. That's the avatar of Indra. Indra is the AI running New London, running this entire thing. Now, Indra ultimately is learning, growing, as we've seen in every movie or book or TV show with an AI that runs the world. They ultimately decide they don't need people. But Mustafa Mond, at one point, travels to a place where we recognize the man she's speaking to, Elliot, because Elliot cloned himself, but the clone became an excellent. This is not discussed. This is not even addressed as, did Elliot clone himself so that he could live out life as his clone? Because once we see the actual real world where Elliot and the others are, they are basically in stasis. Their minds are the supercomputer. And they are really controlling, or at one point were, controlling New London. Now, New London is not computer simulation. They are physical beings in a physical city. But Indra is very much in charge. There is a video, I will link to it in the description, of Plandopolis, the future city where someone is visiting and V is taking you on a tour and praising this socialist, communist, subjugative city. Pretty much the same idea. Ultimately, they unplug all these bodies that die, and Indra starts to die with them. Indra is the one who ultimately finds a way to escape, very Lawnmower Man-esque, and leaves the box for burner right near the little hover car that's going to take him and ultimately help Watson to these savage lands. This is a complete 180 for this story. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley is a screaming story of do not allow this to happen. It screams at you that you do not want to live like this. But unfortunately, for the past 30-odd years, I count myself lucky to have graduated high school when and where I did, because looking back just a few years after I graduated, even the town I went to high school in, which at the time was very conservative, had all but fallen to the liberal mindset of, we're not here to actually teach history, we're here to indoctrinate people to obey us. So for 30-odd years, students have been taught that if it feels good, you have a right to do it. Take all the drugs you want, have all the sex you want, drink all you want, doesn't matter. Anyone telling you you can't do that is a racist, bigot, sexist, transphobe, homophobe, whatever you want to call them. And when you call them that name, that ultimately makes them wrong, and you're the winner. And those are the people who made this series for Peacock. They're the ones who showed a society that they portrayed as happy. They portrayed as they're happy taking their drugs. The Epsilons are happy being mindless little robot automatons that just clean up for everybody. The Gammas are happy just folding your clothes and waiting for you to give them an order. The Betas are happy being kept stoned out of their gourd and used for their body. Of course, the Alphas are happy being in charge. They portray those living outside of society as savages, horrific people, violent tendencies, ready to kill you at a moment's notice, and that actually is what ends up happening, or almost happening, in this story, as opposed to, they're just there. And I worry about this because people are going to watch this series, and I will warn you now. Very foul language. There is quite a bit of violence eventually. There is a lot of nudity. They show these orgies. And they don't pull their punches. It's why it's not on. I don't even think they'll let it go on like Cinemax or anything. They're keeping it where they can control the viewing to their own membership. Who has to say, the person signing up, I am 18 or over. And you know what? I like that, because without those aspects, it would not be anywhere near the book. It would be light years further wrong. But just fair warning, it shows what the book talks about, save the things done by children in the book that are not shown on the screen, which is good. But this is glorifying a subjugative society where you are controlled 24/7. It's glorifying this society where you are engineered into a caste. You're not allowed to choose your job, it's chosen for you. You don't choose where to live, it's chosen for you. There is no food. You're kept alive by the drug they give you, which has also, I would guess, some nutrients in it. And you are engineered to serve society and to ignore yourself. And I will not deny that as me, I know that I should not ignore the ills of society. But I'm not going to surrender my body and my mind and my life to society. I was willing to sacrifice myself as a firefighter to save a life. Not to save an empty building. I would just pour water from the outside. But if there is an innocent life in there, if there's a life in there, I don't care if it's a person or a pet. If there's a life in there that I can save, I'm going to save it. And I'm very thankful every day that I didn't have to do that. I'm sure my family is grateful as well. But that's very different. That was a choice I made. That was not some government controller saying, you will be a firefighter until the day you die. And if you die on the job, that's your role. That was me choosing to say, I can help people. And I was able to. In New London, everything is to maintain the social order, which is not what should happen in a free society. But New London is very much not a free society. In the book, New London goes on. Lillian is gone, yeah. A few other people are gone, yeah. Both versions show Bernard and John finding out who John's father is, and that he's still a very high-ranking Alpha Plus. In the book, John's father just goes away. Once it's found out that he has a living child, he just kind of fades away. In the series, John's father actually tries to throw John off the cliff, fails, and falls off the cliff. When this is found out, of course, they blame John. This is very much victim shaming. How dare you not jump off that cliff? We're going to now say you pushed him. But they don't understand death, really. In this world, people don't die publicly. They don't ever see it. In the book, John is mocked, misunderstood, and ultimately reviled. But society goes on. In this series, John is the savage, who they tried to assimilate. And for a while, he was willing to go along for the social good. He participated in the orgies, and he took the drugs, and he told the stories, and he entertained people, and he was doing the right thing. But then he destabilized us, and he caused the societal fate. Now, they do at least try to mitigate that insanity with an admission from Indra that she allowed him in, knowing what would happen because she wanted it. They do try to blame too much technology, but that's still not the point. The point is that they have changed so much that they have turned 180 degrees from the message Aldous Huxley was sending in 1932. I mean, 88 years ago, Aldous Huxley warned us of a world where there is no personal choice. You have no control over your life. You will be kept drugged to control you. You will be bred into castes. No one is allowed to have a family. No one is allowed to be monogamous. Everyone has a right to your body. You have no rights. The book shows the absolute hell that would be. And it shows the people in that hell loving it because they've been brainwashed. The series, on the other hand, shows it as utopia, ruined by people who cannot accept that they just don't have any rights. It's insane, is what it is. Truly. I've talked long enough on this. This is a topic that when I see something like this, I am going to talk about it because I can't avoid talking about it. This is something I can't stand. I don't mind artistic license, okay? I don't mind when you feel you have to change something to tell the story in a better way. But don't change the story. Imagine in 20 years, 25 years, someone takes the Hunger Games or Harry Potter and they make Katniss or Harry the villain. Now, it is rather odd because when I was in college, one of my assignments was to take a well-known story and tell it from a perspective to change the hero, the villain. My professor at the time is brilliant. He was and is a brilliant man. Heroes are only heroes because of two reasons. They are willing to act and have their story is told by the side that ultimately wins. Imagine a world where instead of the Treaty of Treason, it is just the treaty. And no one survives the Hunger Games until Katniss is the only one left standing. And they're unable to kill her because everyone they send into the arena to kill her gets killed by her. Snow, not wanting any more of his people to die, ultimately declares a change in the games. Now there will be one victor per year. But Katniss is the one who's caused it. Katniss is hated by everyone in the districts and in the capital because now they're subjugated to a worse degree. Imagine a movie or a retelling of the Harry Potter series where the Potters were stalking old families, murdering them in their beds. The Death Eaters were not Death Eaters. They were simply old pure bloods. And they weren't going out and causing any death or destruction. The Potters were just sneaking around murdering. Voldemort goes to their house to wipe out the line and is wiped out. But now the war is over because he's gone. And of course we have those intervening 11 years for Harry, 10 years for Harry. But in that time, the old purebloods have spread the story, and Potter comes to Hogwarts and is reviled, while Draco is the beloved son of British Wizarding Society. Muggleborns would have been in their place everywhere. Gryffindor would be the hated and reviled house of the, I don't know how you would say it, just the foolhardy. While the House of Cunning and Ambition is praised for seeing the big picture and being willing to take part. It's very easy to flip a story, and you have to be careful about doing that. I say to people very often, I could argue either side of an issue. If given enough time to write this speech, I could write an anti-Second Amendment speech. I'm not going to, but I will, because that's one topic I will never even try to argue against. Just not going to do it. But I have that ability, and that is very simply because I read everything I can. I was taught very well how to compose a paper or a speech or a story, which involves a lot of research. I was taught very well how to give a speech and how to debate a topic. And I have been forced to debate against my own stance. I make no attempt to hide that I support a border barrier. But in a debate competition in 2005, I believe, 5 or 6, I actually had to debate against that. Came very close to winning. But that's kind of my point. You can take license, and HBO took a lot of license with Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451, written by Ray Bradbury many, many, many years ago. He could not have envisioned a society with basically large television screens on the sides of buildings where you see emoticons and thumbs up and hearts flowing up on the right side like we see with Facebook videos, live videos, where people are given drugs that they drop into their eye, and you have Yuxi, which is very much an Amazon Echo Dot or a Google Home thing, where when you're banished, your fingerprints are removed and then they're put back. Bradbury couldn't have foreseen that. But that license adds to his story. It adds to that message where instead of demonizing the people who are banished as destroying society, it shows the subjugation of the people. And that's good. That is the use of new technology to tell a story without destroying the story. Brave New World doesn't even care. They destroyed Huxley's stories and told the opposite, because I believe they want that opposite to come true. That is frightening. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. As always, be civil. We're not here to scream and yell, act like toddlers. We're here to discuss, dissent, and debate as civil adults, and we can. Make sure also to like the video if you liked it, and give it a thumbs up if to affect the algorithm, and to subscribe and share the video so that we can grow the channel and widen the conversation. Still doing the giveaway. At 500 subscribers, it's 1 book. At 1,000, it's 2. And at 1,500, it's 3. The first 2 levels, you will get a choice. There are 3 books to choose from. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, 1984 by George Orwell. And I have said the 500 subscriber winner will also get a copy of the Federalist Papers, as I have found I have 2 copies. If I can find a couple more copies cheap, who knows? But I am doing that, but I have to reach those thresholds before that happens. Until next time, have a wonderful day.